talk about the Socionics quadras and give some kind of bits of what makes the quadra, and kind of going off the dome here. So we're just going to kind of make stuff up, not really make it up, but you kind of get what I'm saying, kind of impromptu. So I guess we could start off with the Alpha Quadra. Alpha Quadra types all value the same kinds of information, all of the same information elements, and that would be extroverted intuition, introverted sensation, extroverted logic, or introverted logic, my apologies, and extroverted feeling, or extroverted ethics. So the theme of Alpha Quadra is allowing things to happen organically. That's how they express introverted sensation. That's their form of sensation. And so Alpha Quadra types are not interested in taking up space and making things happen physically and in the environment and fighting for something and contending for something and acquiring resources, but rather allowing things in the day-to-day to happen organically. And that relates to extroverted intuition, because if things are at rest, there's more potential that can be generated. And if you take an approach to sensation to grab resources and to make things happen, you are by virtue eliminating possibilities. You're eliminating things to come into fruition if you actually move towards one desirable outcome, in a sense, and say no to possibilities. That's what extroverted sensation is doing as a consequence. And so alpha types, that's the way that their introverted sensation and their extroverted intuition kind of interplay with each other. They also want to seek clarity and understanding intellectually, and they want to understand things that are either possible or theoretical and come to some basic foundational understanding of that thing. And so a lot of times Alpha Quadra types will be interested in different kinds of theory and the principle that is embedded within that theory. What makes the theory different from other theories? And what's the relationship between the two? Is there something logically categorizing about one kind of idea versus another? And they feel entitled to the right to share their opinion in that regard. They feel that their opinion about life, whatever that may be, because they're different from other people, they have the entitlement to share their opinion. Everyone is a different object. Everyone's different and they're comprised differently and have their own unique personality. And so alpha types like open-ended conversation that is not subjecting the conversation to ethical judgments. I don't like this idea. I like that idea. I don't like this person. I like that person, but would rather keep things merry, lighthearted, and theoretical in order to understand something in a democratic fashion. They're not trying to be resolute in their system of thought and judgmental in their system of thought, but they would like the opportunity to share a difference in opinion, and that's enjoyable to them. Even if it results in not agreeing, they still enjoy the process of opening up the rhetorical floor and having everyone kind of participate in that free libertarian environment of ideas, so on and so forth. People that I think this highlights that kind of value is Bill Maher, who is a political commentator. He has his HBO show, Real Time with Bill Maher, where he often will bring in a bunch of opposing interlocutors, that's a weird word to say, but people. He's a Democrat, classic liberal, if you will, and he oftentimes brings conservatives on his show, and he will just kind of go toe-to-toe with them, and he will go toe-to-toe with them, and he will seek to understand their point of view, and where he can find ground to agree, he will agree. If he doesn't find it for a whole host of reasons, then he doesn't. But he wants this kind of intellectual honesty that all parties involved are committed to, which is the clarity-seeking effect of introverted logic, and wants people to play fair intellectually, even though he doesn't always play fair, but, it is what it is. But he does often interview a bunch of people that are different than him and that don't agree with his worldview. He brings Christians on, Christian conservatives on, and he's a liberal atheist, and so he just enjoys the difference of people and their opinions at least wants to give them a fair shake, and he went to speak with Donald Trump at the White House recently, which is for a liberal to do is very not common, especially a knowledgeable liberal who ideologically differs with Trump, and he's one of the more fair liberals of today. And so for him to do that is pretty distinct from the rest of the Democratic Party, and it's distinct for a lot of people. And so you can see the values of extroverted intuition, introverted logic kind of coming into play, obviously extroverted logic and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that is another aspect of Alpha Quadra, getting more specific into extroverted feeling, is that they are interacting with the prevailing moods, and the lightheartedness of the Alpha Quadra comes from extroverted feeling, extroverted ethics, and introverted sensation. And they desire to have this environment where people are laughing and joking and kind of getting along, and there's some type of sensory element to it, whether it be good kinds of food or a nice day outside, and that they're just kind of going back and forth, and there's this general mood of levity and lightheartedness that derive from that kind of valuing of information. And it's positive emotionality in the present moment. Archetypally, I think of a birthday party. There's no, like a birthday party archetypally, or you could even say practically, this is a positive event. People are laughing and joking. We have pizza, we have drinks, we have laughter, we have activities, we have cake, we have bright decorations, and it's just this general energy of positivity and enjoyment, right? Positivity and enjoyment. That's Fe and Si in combination. And that's what they desire. Now, obviously, within the Alpha Quadra, you have types that are, in regards to that block of Fe and Si, are moving towards it and most embody it, which would be the Alpha SFs. They're the ones that are the chief marshals in creating effective environments towards that kind of information of Fe and Si. They know how to do that. And then you have the ones that are more divergent towards that block of information, that quadral block of information, which would be the Alpha INTs. They would have a dissonance with this information in regards to strength, not in regards to value, because they actually value this information, but in regards to strength, their ability to elicit these kind of positive emotional sensory effects in the environment are challenged. And that's what creates the duality between the types within the same quadra, is that there's an internal imbalance within the types themselves, because they have different strengths in regards to the information they all value. And that's what creates that relative balance, theoretically. And so the ones that, like for example, an ILE, with their ideas and their desire to understand complex phenomena, will cause them to neglect their body. It will sometimes their excited desire to get people engaged and interested in certain ideas that they find interesting will cause other people that it could potentially disrupt their own introverted sensation, that they are affected by this overwhelm of feelings of excitement and shock value, whatever you want to say, that kind of disrupt the natural equilibrium in the present moment. And so sometimes ILEs can say certain things, whether they're intellectual or not, in order to see how people react to them. But primarily with ILEs, it's that effect comes about through their lead function. So they're not necessarily trying to make you feel uncomfortable for its own sake, which would be beta extroverts. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to generate the feeling of excitedness and profoundness that grabs your attention so that you're interested in the same things they are. Now, I think the opposite can probably be true, that when people are not excited by what they're teaching, that could probably bum them out. That could probably irritate them. And then there might be elements of condescension in them towards you, or ridiculing you. Like, how could you not find this interesting? And I could imagine an ILE would try to rearrange the parts every different kind of way so that you get it, because they're introverted logic. They're strong in introverted logic and they value it. So they're trying to rearrange the puzzle pieces so that everything fits. And once you can see see that it fits relative to your own way of thinking, that if I know how you think and I know the language that you speak, I can rearrange this puzzle in a way that you can see it now. And if you can see it, then you should be excited about it. So they have that naivety in regards to ideas and people to a certain extent, and this is just extroverted intuition and introverted sensation working together in some fashion, or the themes that derive from it. That it's not that they don't like this thing, right? This is the mind of the ILE. It's not that this is not interesting to them. It's just that I have to articulate it differently, and then you can see logic being flexible, working around and maneuvering things, and using analogies and metaphors and creative ways of teaching, alternative ways of teaching, so that the person can get it, right? You think of Bill Nye trying to bring some complex idea about physics or chemistry or biology or whatever aspect of science you want to say to simple terms. And if I can reduce all of this complex information down to a single and succinct and clear understanding, I make it easier in theory for them to get excited about it, because I've removed the intellectual barrier. If they don't get what I'm saying, they will never be excited about it. So a prerequisite about being excited about an idea is that you understand the idea. And that requires being able to take all of this ethereal information outside of me, and all of this complicated phenomena that exists in reality, understand it fundamentally, and then be able to analogize it with something that they would understand, or to be able to reduce it into the most simple parts imaginable. And then once they're also that's so you can see all of the Alpha Quadra values demonstrated depending on the type. And so I guess I'm just going to make this about Alpha Quadra, because I'll keep talking. I'm trying to squeeze the juice out of it. Alpha types want the freedom to explore things of personal interest that aren't relegated to their own subjective ethical judgments about the thing, in order to understand something fundamental about the thing at their own pace, in their own way, without hurry, without rush, and in an organic fashion, right? They want their own time to look up their own things, to explore their own interests without the outside world demanding things from them. That's why a lot of them, if they have certain interests, they don't need to necessarily capitalize financially on those ideas or on those interests, because once you bring in a kind of external pressure or obligation, that ruins the fun of the process to an alpha type. Collectively, they're not necessarily interested in your judgments, your private, particular, subjective judgments about people or things. They're universalists by definition, and in that way they make objective judgments about people or things to a certain extent. And you can even think about alpha comedians, for example. I'm thinking about how Alpha Quadra humor is distinct from other kinds of humor, and it's just basically the information demonstrating itself through the vehicle of comedy. And a lot of times you'll see, for the Alpha SFs, the humor coming from the body, right? They might change their facial expressions and do goofy movements. And I think of Jim Carrey, I think of Robin Williams, who I think are probably both ESEs. Probably Robin Williams potentially could be an IEE, but they're in that kind of similar realm. And obviously, an IE still would have four-dimensional extroverted feelings, so they could still theoretically do similar things. But it's that kind of thing. Jack Black might be an ESE. So Kevin Hart might be an ESE. So yeah, alphas are not in a rush to do things, just practical observations of alpha types. They're not working on your time. They don't feel the pressure of achievement. They're not necessarily achievement oriented. They can, an ILE in theory could, if there's some profound thing that they're interested in and need resources in order to capture public interest. And if they really do believe that it's something profound, then they'll figure a way, whether it garners monetary resources or not, in order for it to be seen or heard. They can't not share it. ILEs will, they are going to share things they're interested in with virtually everyone. And probably insofar as yeah. So what else could I say about Alpha? They have childlike energy. I mean, that's kind of obvious. They're kind of that idea of Peter Pan syndrome, that they never grow up. They're always in Wonderland, free of obligation and responsibility, always having fun, enjoying the moment, love conversation. Alpha types are pretty good, probably one of the best quadras in terms of open dialogue. Like, they can talk about anything and will try to extract every potential way of perceiving the information they're talking about with someone else. They'll think about it from multiple different points of view. And once they kind of run out of possibilities in conversation, that's probably when the conversation naturally falls off. They're not trying to direct conversation to any particular end. That's just literally all of their function, or the elements coming together. Things are organically occurring, possibility in conversation. We can go in this direction or that direction, or this direction or that direction. And when you bring in strict agendas and structure and have this certain outcome in the conversation, they don't like to do that. They would rather have the conversation just go where it will. If we have a certain goal in this conversation, a certain direction in this conversation, there could be some other more relevant opportunity and possibility of where this conversation could go that could have some positive outcome, even more so than the one that we were originally intending, right? Because the original intent of a goal-directed conversation has necessarily one direction that it's going to go, and you're systematically working through points. And if adjacent points pop up, you're trying to reduce those in order to stay on track, and in order to fulfill the aim of the conversation. We have this business solution, and we're going to systematically talk about how we can apply it and how to bring it into realization. And if someone is offering alternative approaches to solve the problem, we need to eliminate those in order to bring about what we intended to bring about via this conversation. Extroverted intuition and alphas in general don't think that way. They don't like to have heavy conversations that have a lot of strong personal judgments about people or things, like I said before. And that's especially true, obviously, with the alpha NTs, because both of that kinds of information would be in their superego block. And so having a particular negative attitude towards someone would be, they would not like that. So they're comfort seeking, and I say that in the general sense, not necessarily in the socionic sense, because I don't want people to hear comfort seeking. Only one of them is seeking comfort, and that's ILE. It's like, yes, in theory and in the system, but they relate with introverted sensation, or relate with sensation through the introverted SI. Basically, I'm making this overly complicated. And so they desire that kind of comfort, and you could probably see this just in their habits of seeking comfort out, being comfortable in their home, and having some type of strong relationship to food that they like, and that brings them this sense of comfort, and having kind of everything they need for survival in that regard. If they are ideological, it's usually some kind of form of intellectual liberalism, right? Everyone has differences of opinion, and there's virtue in and of itself in that regard. Everyone should be heard and listened to. You can obviously challenge people's points of view and use reasoning and logic in order to confront certain bad ideas, but everyone should vocalize those bad ideas so that we use better ideas to eliminate those bad ideas. We use more conversation in order to confront bad conversation, or ideas that are produced from those conversations that are irrational or unethical, whatever the case is. So yeah, I could make a part 2. I'm really just trying to think I could get more into the system, but I think that's a pretty decent overview of Alpha Quadra, and I guess I could finish all of them. And I'll probably make a collage of people of every type that I think are Alpha Quadras. I might make it a thumbnail, and yeah, why not? Peace.